My name's David Goddard, VP of Global Programmatic Strategy, and as you heard there, digital audio is not a new concept. But as it grows, it's causing a shift change in the advertising landscape, from streaming our favourite music to listening to the latest podcasts. Digital audio is a key part of media consumption. I know I'm probably double the average now in terms of 5 hours of media consumption. And this panel here today will explore how the programmatic audio landscape is evolving in Europe, the key opportunities and challenges that it presents, and what the future looks like. We may even touch on voice. So before we jump into the questions, I'd like to invite each panelist just to give a brief introduction of yourselves and what you do at your respective companies.
Dzień dobry, Warszawa. Mam wielką przyjemność być na scenie w miaście mojego urodzenia, but now I will switch to English. So
thank you.
Yes, so my name is Zuzanna. I'm representing Spotify from an automation perspective. One of the areas I cover is programmatic specifically, and we are doing, unsurprisingly, a very big push right now on programmatic audio.
Hello, I'm Erik. I grew a beard. On the pictures, no beard. I'm CRO from Targetspot, so we're responsible for sales operations across North America and Europe. We have offices on those two parts of the world, I would say, and we are part of a larger group called Audio Valley, which is specialized in audio point of sale and also music rights.
Hello, I'm Alex McGibbon from Xaxis. You might remember me from the presentation I just did.
Thanks, Alex. Hello, Szymon from Wavemaker, and I'm here because together with Group M and other agencies, we are actually working to develop a programmatic audio offer for our clients and also to push the market, to develop the offer.
And that leads me nicely on to why should advertisers invest in digital audio? Erik, would you mind kicking off with that, please?
Absolutely, but after the presentation of Alex was really great. So, but maybe I will just explain a little bit about our experience that we saw in the US and also in Europe, because we were more active for more than a decade. It really started when audio first became digital radio, and digital radio was just the same as you could have on terrestrial. It was simulcast, were the same ads, and generally the salespeople were selling that in packages, together with a terrestrial, because the audiences were still very small. We're talking about 2%, 3%, and so there was no really interest of an advertiser because they could have it in a package. But then suddenly that changed with really the radio groups starting to inserting ads, so taking out the simulcast ad, the terrestrial ads, and bringing those new ads in. So suddenly advertisers could reach a new audience. And of course also the audience was increasing, not 5%, but suddenly it was 10%, 15%. And then the magic came, of course, what we saw with audio, which is a very powerful medium, but very declarative. It's a panel telling how much audience you have, what is your age group, strong brands, however. And digital audio, so we skipped the name radio or digital radio because there were much more formats than only radio in digital. And then, of course, and that's what Alex also was mentioning, we had the good things of everything what's in digital: segmentation, audience segmentation, tracking, and engagement, and really targeting on zip codes, targeting on certain audiences, retargeting. So we combined actually what we saw is that advertisers saw actually the good things of the both sides.
And just to add to that, I think it's very much about future-proofing your media plans, because there is a massive change happening. The amount of time spent on visual stimulation is almost in a decline now. We've really reached a peak, and there is so much more time, consumer time, spent consuming screen-less media. So as marketers, as planner buyers, you really have to start to invest in this medium because it's very much going to be the future. Alex gave some stats around consumption at Spotify. The average user is using us at 2.5 hours per day. and we are the #1 app on mobile. We are above Google, we are above Facebook. So if you are not learning how to use the medium of programmatic audio, you are missing out. And certain audience demographics, for instance, like millennials, are, really predominantly in this medium. So it's very, very important, from a future-proofing, as I said, perspective, to make sure that you are able to execute in programmatic audio.
I would say, in the words of Procter & Gamble, preacher, to say, I invest in media where my audience is, where my customer is. So if the audience is going to Spotify, to your digital audio, advertisers should invest there.
I mean, coming on to media investment, we saw a fantastic presentation from Daniel Knapp yesterday talking about the growth of digital and programmatic. How is audio and voice development impacting the digital and programmatic advertising ecosystem at the moment? Zuzanna?
So we're really starting to see, a marked change across the board. So if we look at the platforms, there's been a really big push towards enabling programmatic audio. So all of the major DSPs now, in fact, I think there's a count of about 30 DSPs globally are audio enabled. So there's been a big push on the technology side. On the consumer side, it's, there's just an adoption in voice-activated devices. Over 7.5 billion smart speakers shipped in Europe in Q4 last year, which is just absolutely record-breaking. So consumer attention is going there. The technology is going there. And then from an industry perspective, one of the things that Spotify has been very focused on is evangelizing programmatic audio. And we have actually done a collaboration with Google, with Adobe, and with Rubicon Project. And we're running a program across 5 European markets called Love Audio, very much to evangelize and educate around the power of programmatic audio. So I just see a big shift across the board in the industry, which is following, to your point, where the consumers are going.
It sounds like a no-brainer almost, and audio is that place where a lot of us are spending most of our time, but there are clearly some barriers kind of to programmatic audio growth at the moment. What are they, and how do we overcome them? Alex, would you mind leading off?
No, it's a great question, and I did mention some of them in the presentation previously, but I think I'll just dig into a couple of them. So the supply, I think limited radio stations online that accept programmatic audio, especially in developing markets, when we're talking about an EMEA perspective. I think that is definitely changing and will only get faster with time, but that is currently an issue now. And then the kind of measurement capabilities, so going beyond reach and listen-through rates, so measuring effectiveness of audio, such as exposure to the ad, etc. And then I think really what I mentioned in the presentation is probably the biggest one from my perspective, and that is that confidence in the understanding of programmatic audio is not high. In fact, it's not even right to say it's not high, it's incredibly low. And I think that's really key, and obviously we're here today to try and help educate with that, but that's clearly an area of focus that we need to continue with.
And sorry if I may, so I just mentioned the Love Audio program. As part of that program, we actually do a live poll to the audience. And so far we've run it in UK, France and Germany. And we've polled 600 planner buyers on what is their single biggest barrier to adopting programmatic audio, and the lack of creative stands out more than anything else. So there is a huge awareness to be done with creative agencies and with brands as well, to make sure that when they are briefing their agencies, they're thinking about audio as well, and briefing the creative to build those assets.
Yeah, exactly. Because before we talk about confidence, Alex, I would start with the awareness. Because on the one hand, we have this great world of Spotify, but on the other hand, we have still some traditional audio publishers, and it's a totally different story, totally different perspective. So I would even argue with some points from your presentation, Alex, I'm sorry. Because when I did some research, I dug in, and I discovered totally different world. Many of us remember, like a few years ago, we had the digital video revolution. And back then, there were like those discussions, these buzzwords. Everybody talked about digital video. It was so cool back then. And when I talked to the industry about digital audio, it was like a silence. And I'm meaning traditional publishers, the marketeers, the clients, but also the agency guys. So it's like, what is digital audio? Who's got it? Like, who needs it? So to start with, yeah, there's still much work to be done, and I'm talking the word beyond Spotify on the publisher's side, but also on the client side, because there are many marketeers who are really going on well with digital programmatic. But we may not forget that there's a large group of FMCG clients, OTC clients, that they don't go along with digital that well. So, there's much work to be done to overcome the barriers. And actually, this is the role of the agencies, that's why I'm here, to educate all of the parties, that digital audio actually is cool and it's got great, huge potential, actually, you, Alex, presented.
I want to just come back on to a point, Alex, you just mentioned again, with regards to measurement. How can audio advertising be measured, and what are the kind of key measurement metrics that brands should be looking for? Simon, do you mind if I come back to you?
Yeah, sure. This is actually a very cool topic because to start with, the measurement, we know it's got some issues and challenges, and it was covered during the panel yesterday with Marta and Oleg, I believe. So we know that there are still some challenges, but actually there are vast opportunities how to measure digital audio. To start with, we can measure reach, frequency, even GRPs. We can go deeper. We can talk about quality, meaning completion rates, right? We can go deeper and check on the consumer level, did we reach the real audience we want to reach? We can go further and we can do, integrate digital audio into attribution modeling. So it's really, really cool. Two important things is that, first of all, most of the metrics will be universal with other digital programmatic, but not all of them will be relevant. Let's say clicks and click-through ratio in digital audio. I mean, not always, not necessarily. And also, again, as in other programmatic spaces, there are so many metrics that we need to decide each single time of the client which are important and which we should focus on and which are completely irrelevant. But there's a more interesting aspect of the measurement. I would also take a step back and look at the traditional radio. And are there any counter guys here? Lucky for me. Because what I'm going to say out loud, it's kind of dangerous. They would like to chase me. Because if you take traditional radio, on many, many markets, how it's measured. You already told that it's declarative data, but maybe we should put some more stress what kind of data and what the quality of the traditional radio measurement it really is. Because I know, David, do you remember what radio ads did you listen to yesterday?
Only the Adam Buxton ones, unfortunately.
This is how the radio is measured. Yeah? So we ask people what kind of ads did they hear the day before or a week before. And actually, in 2019, they still need to fill out the written diaries. What ads did they hear? They remember. So this is the kind of the measurement of traditional radio. And actually, everybody agrees to it. So the publishers, they sell the inventory basing on such declarative data. The marketers are willing to invest basing on such data, their real money, millions, and also the agencies are optimizing the efficiency basing on such data. And this is the market standard, and everybody agrees to do it in such way. And when the digital audio, comes to play, we finally have the great opportunity for the real measurement, real time, and on the real consumer level, not just some panelist who remembers the ad or not. So this is the great opportunity, and we need to speak it out loud that this is the advantage of the digital. And we will finally have the opportunity to talk about the real efficiency, not just some declarative data with some statistics, etc., etc. So that's my point. That's the opportunity for digital.
It's very clear. and there's a significant opportunity there. But clearly, you've all mentioned it, outside of Spotify, there is a severe lack of publishers offering their audio inventory in this space. What do publishers need, and how can the industry help them create a programmatic audio opportunity for the number of advertisers who should be moving into this space?
Well, it's clear we are in relationship with a lot of publishers in the US and in Europe, and I agree what you say is that they have a, you know, Spotify is a digital native company, and many of the radio publishers, or even the publishers and radio, and even in podcasts, they are digital adopters, so they struggle with the strategy to go on a digital. And when we talk to them and we do a revenue model, we come to the same conclusion. If you make, like, for example, a radio station, you make $50 million a year in ad revenue. And imagine that from one day to the other, all your audience is digital, and you shift to that digital way, they will never make $50 million ad revenue on a year. Because they are not prepared to it. So what we see actually in a revenue model, what we do with publishers, is the lack of a DMP. No data. So we can, as an industry, help them just to understand who is their listener, not on a declarative basis, but when you go into a programmatic space, a publisher without a DMP do not have smart inventory, and we know that DSPs are targeting on that, or targeting on mobile ad IDs, cookies eventually, but not really in digital audio. And that is really one of the first things that we say to a publisher is, do you have a DMP, or can we help you building on a DMP to make your inventory much smarter and make sure that you can have a higher CPM to sell in that space. And for the rest, it's more technical hurdle. You know, it's much more complicated to sell in programmatic in a digital audio space, not from agency side, not from a DSP side, but from a radio station. You need to understand that it's actually a direct stream, and you need to insert ads in a continuous stream. It's not like video where you put an ad in front of a player, you push play, and the ad is serving. So it's very complicated, and they have technical hurdles. So we can really help them in best practices. How can they insert in the best way? Content segmentation, understanding their listener, and then advise them. And we are here in Europe. GDPR is really facing very hard in digital audio. And we see that now that programmatic is really increasing, and we're talking triple-digit numbers, certainly in Europe. And you know, all that GDPR and do you have consent or not consent, we need to advise as well our publishers for that. Because digital audio, you cannot give consent if you're listening to a stream by a Sonos device. You don't have a click to do, you cannot say I agree. So those are all elements actually that we need to discuss with the publishers. If you're selling direct, not programmatically, you don't have that issue.
There we have it for our CMPs out in the audience. Please create an audio version of your CMP. That'd be fabulous. And look, we all need role models, and brands especially need role models. So I'd love to hear what brands are doing audio well.
So I think one of the things that holds brands back from adopting not even programmatic audio, but in general is audio, is the consideration, you know, they might not have a music strategy, or they might not have a sonic identity. And those things are, you know, they're important, and they're definitely things that you can evolve. But to begin with, it doesn't have to be a specific audio strategy. And where we see brands really succeeding is when they think about programmatic audio as part of their broader audience activation. So rather than doing a specific audio only buy, they think of it more as an omni-channel piece of what they're doing. So for instance, we see one brand where we've seen really good success is Nestle. Nestle ran a campaign that was specifically focused on display and video, but they were chasing a millennial audience, and they were really focused on incremental reach. And then they realized that actually adding audio onto that buy, and specifically programmatic audio, enabled them to really achieve that incremental reach by reaching users who they couldn't access with screen time. So they had to find users in screenless moments. And it's that kind of mindset. So, you know, coming into the audio space and looking for those new audiences is really where we see brands succeeding.
And I'm being given a time signal, so in a very concise manner, please can all of you give us, where do you see audio going in the next 12 months? Simon, do you want to start down that end?
Well, sure. I'm very optimistic because the market is going to develop. We've got explosions of podcasts, so it's going the right way. But I don't believe we will have the year of audio coming as we had in terms of video and mobile. Sorry for that, David. The base is simply too low. But yeah, more and more advertisers are going to invest, test and learn, and we will probably have some more cool cases with the proven efficiency as in terms of Nestle or Volvo.
We'll see more people shifting from traditional to digital audio, I think, and more of that inventory will become available. And the thing I'm looking forward to seeing most is when you're talking about voice and you're talking about people buying using voice devices.
Well, we've been in the space already for 10 years, so we're telling already for 10 years is the year of digital audio, so that's already for 10 years that we're telling that, but we strongly believe it is there. You know, if the medium is increasing and ad revenues with more than 30% in the US market, which is valued at 2.3 billion, and the same in Europe, yeah, we believe it's the year of audio.
And we've seen over triple-digit growth of audio consumption and specifically programmatic audio consumption on our platform. So, you know, I'm just going to echo what these guys are saying. It's definitely got the momentum behind it. Consumers are heading there. Brands are starting to, you know, to realise the potential, and it's really down to agencies to help evangelise that. And that's, you know, that's hopefully what we're achieving here today.
Fabulous. There we have it. Before we give a big round of applause to this panel, I'd just like to say, if we have got you excited about audio and you want to find out more, please look to IAB Europe's website. There's some fantastic output coming out. It's going to be included in the ADEX benchmarking report. Obviously, we've got the Xaxis and IAB Europe case study. Please download it and have a read. And there'll be some blog posts coming up touching on or speaking to experts such as these on stage, where you can read more about audio. So thank you very much, panel. Fabulous work. And thank you very much for listening.